What?
Good evening.
What do you want?
I thought you were going to debate with me.
Yeah.
I think you're wrong on pretty much all of this.
Okay, what am I... State your business. What am I wrong about?
Well, don't you think that there was an ethno-nationalist pretext for invading Transnistria, South Ossetia, Abkhazia?
Fuck no, there wasn't an
Ukraine?
ethno-nationalist pretext. What does that
Okay,
even
then
mean?
respond. If I make the appeal to all of the globe that there are ethnic Russians in those places, I'm making an ethno-nationalist plea.
No, you're not.
Yes,
If
you are.
you have an unresolved conflict, such as the one in South Ossetia, between the Russians living there, mind you, not Russia, but the Russians actually fucking living there, and Georgia, and Russians... Yeah, Ossetians are Persians, first and foremost, but the Russians decide to go help them. Yeah, they're Iranic. They're not even ethnically Russian. What are you even talking about?
Do you have evidence for the separatists being anything but Kremlin-backed Russians, rather than native South Ossetians or Abkhazians that are doing this?
Yeah,
organically?
I do. The conflict had its origins immediately after the end of the Soviet Union, before any kind of Kremlin deep state could have taken new form.
Pretty sure Georgia was invaded in 2008. Isn't that the case?
Yeah, but the conflict started in the 1990s. You're again revealing your utter ignorance of the fucking situation.
Your go-to for just calling people ignorant is a sign of weakness.
You didn't even know that the South Ossetian conflict began in the 1990s.
I mean...
It started in actually 1989. It didn't even start in the 90s. It started in 1989.
All right. Okay. So is that just one example or what? Does that
It's the example you brought up.
Does that apply to Transnistria and Abkhazia?
Yes, it does.
Why?
Because these were all conflicts that were a result of the fall of the Soviet Union, not Kremlin meddling.
Well, that's demonstrably false in Ukraine, because Igor Girkin, FSB, was working on the ground in the Donbass.
But you talked about Transnistria and Abkhazia.
I mean, we're talking about all these conflicts.
Okay, this is typical lib shit. Doesn't know how to fucking stick to a single line of argument. You don't know how to stick to a single line of argument, so you just throw a bunch of shit at the wall hoping one thing sticks. One by one, what examples do you want to use? The three examples you used, which was Abkhazia, South Ossetia, and Transnistria, started because of the collapse of the Soviet Union. Now you want to talk about Ukraine. We can talk about Ukraine, but you're not able to paint this broad picture of ethno-nationalist Russian aggression.
2007. Georgia's conflict definitely started around 2007.
No, it didn't. It started in 1989. Russia's invasion of Georgia started around that time in 2008.
Okay, but we're not talking about a civil conflict amongst native South Ossetians.
Yes, we are, because the Russian intervention was part of that conflict.
By what justification can the Russians invade?
By what justifications can Russia...
Don't repeat the question, answer it. By what justification can the Russians
Oh, you're
invade?
a tough guy, aren't you? You're going to interrupt me. Answer it! Excuse me. By what justification can Russia...
invade South Ossetia? I want to know. You just told me that they're not ethnic Russians, so what's the justification?
The justification specifically is the fucking fact that...
Do we have more fillers to provide me?
No, the justification is very fucking simple.
What's the justification?
I love how fucking angry you are. Can you chill for a second?
I'm pretty chill.
Okay, so the South Ossetians were fighting Georgia at the time already, and they were allied to Russia. Okay? And they invited the Russians in to come help them on Russia's own border.
You're telling me that that was a Kremlin-backed coup in that oblast?
No, I'm not. I'm
yeah,
not.
you are. You're telling me
I'm not telling you that.
You're telling me that the South Ossetians invited the Russians in to help them wage a war against the Georgians. That's what you're telling me. And then we're playing a semantic game with the rest of it.
The South Ossetians invited the Russians to come help them. The Georgians were committing war crimes in South Ossetia, and the balance of the conflict was shifting in favor of the Western-backed Georgian government. So,
okay, but that sounds like a proxy war rather than an organic revolution.
No, it was an organic conflict because the conflict started in 1989 before any Kremlin agenda could even crystallize.
And do you know the nature of Transnistria and all these occupied areas today? Do you know that they can basically get no economic investment because the legal system is completely in tatters in those places because of what Russia's done?
What has Russia done?
Russia's basically set up parallel governments separate from Georgia, and
is that what? Are you talking about Transnistria or what? What are you talking about?
Look, Georgia and Moldova assert sovereignty over the occupied areas that Russia's occupied.
Which, okay, in Transnistria, that's for Moldova. In the other
one, that's correct. That's correct.
Okay, the Transnistria war started in 1990.
Okay. All right. And the justification is that there were Russian rebels there? Is that what you're telling me?
Yes.
Okay. And then Russia came in to help those rebels? And what's the justification for that?
Moldova was part of the USSR.
I understand that. But the USSR dissolved.
Right. And the Russians who still lived in Transnistria were still Russians.
Right. And that is what Hitler said about the Sudetenland. It's what he said about the Danzig corridor, et cetera, et cetera. Do you believe it's,
But Russia, hold on. The Transnistrians have a right to fight for their own self-determination. They did the bulk of the fighting in that war, was the Transnistrians themselves.
But
it's not like the Russians marched in and took this historical Russian land. Transnistrians, starting in 1990, wanted to resist the new state of affairs under the new independent country of Moldova, which they rejected. So there was a civil conflict that was not resolved, and the aftermath of the collapse of the USSR, it was not resolved.
But would you agree that we're talking about Transnistria, right?
Yeah.
Would you agree that Moldova was unable to assert sovereignty over Transnistria as a result of the aid that was provided them by Russia?
Was Russia decisive in being able to protect the interests of the people of Transnistria? Yes.
What justifies violating the sovereignty?
What justifies Russia from helping Russians in Transnistria acquire self-determination?
Again, this is the same ethno-nationalist.
Okay, let me ask you a question. What right did Moldova have to have any self-determination?
When the USSR dissolved, do you think that those countries that became autonomous areas...
What gives them the right to be autonomous?
I mean, many of them wanted it.
Okay, well, the people of Transnistria wanted to be autonomous too.
I understand that. I understand what you're saying. But you have to understand that civil strife occurs in countries in the wake of the dissolution of empires. The USSR was granted a mighty empire, okay? And when they dissolved, there were civil conflicts in some of these areas. And
what areas? What were those areas defined by?
And Georgia.
What were those areas defined by? Who defined their borders?
South Ossetia.
What defined the borders of those newly formed countries?
I believe that some of the states were assembled based on like ethnic groups in those areas, but there were others that were previously oblasts.
No. In almost every case, these were the former Soviet republics.
Oh, I mean,
they were the borders of the former Soviet republics.
It's not mutually exclusive with what I said. Do you understand that?
These were the former Soviet republics, which didn't have to regard any of those ethnic or national realities at all, because the Soviet Union was one continuous state. So Russians could live in Moldova, and they could live in Ukraine, and they could live in Georgia, they could live all over. They could live in Kazakhstan, because it's all part of the Soviet Union anyway. It's one big happy family. You don't have these hard distinctions of borders, so it doesn't matter, right?
It wasn't really that happy a family. The legacy of the Soviet Union.
That's not really my point. My point is that it didn't matter because this was one continuous state anyway.
Contiguous, not continuous. Anyways, it really doesn't matter what borders were formed by who.
Yes, it does.
No, it really doesn't. What matters is Russia did not stay independent of the civil conflicts in the wake of the dissolution of Russia.
No country stays independent in any fucking conflict. Did NATO stay independent during the fucking Yugoslav wars?
No, but that's an example that you already know the answer to. Switzerland's been independent in many wars.
What the fuck does Switzerland have to do with anything?
You just said no country remains independent in any conflict.
No conflict is going to be devoid of foreign interests funding and aiding certain sides and certain parts.
That much is true. Yeah, I agree with that. But you're not talking about just funding. You're talking about boots on the ground in some of these places, especially Ukraine.
What is your point?
Well, my point is that this is a fucking ethno-nationalist narrative.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is. Dude, if I say that there are ethnic Russians being persecuted in Moldova and Georgia, and therefore I invade, that's exactly what Hitler said about the Danzig corridor, the Sudetenland,
no, it's not.
And Alsace-Lorraine.
No, it's not. Because the war was fought and primarily waged by Transnistrians themselves.
Where's the proof of that?
It started before any Russian involvement of boots on the ground. So that's the evidence.
Are you sure there wasn't an FSB on the ground?
The Russian military presence dates to 1992. The conflict started in 1990.
Well, was there an espionage presence?
What does that fucking prove? What would that prove? If there is an espionage presence
on the ground.
What do you mean? The FSB didn't exist at the time.
KGB did, and that.
The KGB was collapsing as an operational. I don't even know what you're fucking asking,
bro. I'm asking if the material support that Russia gave was justified. That's what I'm asking.
It was. I've told you my answer a million times. I've told you the answer a million times.
Were in trouble. Yeah, you're saying Russians were in trouble, and therefore Russia had the right to get involved. And that was the same excuse that was given in Ukraine, which is what I'd really like to talk about rather than these old conflicts.
Okay.
Do you agree that in 2014 that Russian separatists that were mainly Wagner Group invaded Ukraine?
No.
Why not?
Because separatists can't invade a country. They're separating from that
Wagner
country.
Group was a private military contractor. We've got recovered passports.
Because the main bulk of people doing the separating was not private military contractors. It was the people of Eastern Ukraine who overwhelmingly rejected the 2014 coup, which was illegal according to the Ukrainian constitution.
What is the evidence? I hear this all the time, but I've never seen any evidence that there was a Western-backed coup.
Okay.
I hear
the overthrow of Yanukovych was unconstitutional according to the Ukrainian constitution, and it was illegal. The necessary votes in parliament in order to depose Yanukovych were too few to meet the constitutional requirement.
I believe Verkhovna Rada voted that he be deposed. Their parliament voted that he be deposed.
No, they did not. They did not reach the constitutional requirement for impeaching him.
Okay. What is the constitutional requirement that you're asserting that they did not meet?
Well, let's look it up. Yeah, you need 226.
And there was...
Sorry, you don't need
I'm reading 338 votes in favor.
No, I got that wrong. You need at least 338 votes.
Okay, so there was The Rada voted 328-0. So that's what you're saying.
Yes, there was only 328.
And it's a coup because there was 328 and it didn't meet the legal threshold. But you understand that that's internal, right? That's an internal process. That's not a U.S. process to vote 328-0 and then schedule.
Yeah, but it was still a coup, a leaked call between Victoria Nuland and I forget who else. Literally discussed handpicking who they wanted to, who they preferred would rule Ukraine after the coup, and that person actually did acquire power.
That person was the opposition leader. It wasn't like a handpicking. He was already a known politician.
Okay, why was he already a known politician? Was it because of his organic popularity among the Ukrainian people?
Turchnev.
That was America's guy in Ukraine. He was a Western fucking agent.
What evidence do you provide for him being a Western agent?
Name him.
Alexander Turchnev.
Last name?
Turchinov. Turchnov. He was then succeeded by, I believe, Serhiy Arbuzov. Because Alexander was the acting president and prime minister. Then the power was transferred to Serhiy Arbuzov.
The prime minister of Ukraine among the immediate deposition of Yanukovych.
Yeah, the acting prime minister was Alexander Turchinov. And then the prime minister that succeeded Turchinov as acting prime minister was Serhiy Arbuzov.
Where are you getting that information?
I mean, this is...
The acting prime minister in 2014? As of when? The 27th of February? Because that was Yatsenyuk.
This is Yatsenyuk? This says as of the 25th of May, after Yanukovych's removal, Alexander was the acting prime minister and president. This is Wikipedia. I mean, what are you?
Go ahead and link it in fact checking.
All right, whatever.
Yatsenyuk was the prime minister until the 29th. Sorry, yeah, until the 14th of April 2016. From 27th of February to 14th of April.
27th of February, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Of 2014?
Yeah, and Poroshenko was president from the 7th of June.
All right, hold on. Where's your fact-checking channel? Hold on, I'm looking for it. Oh, I see it. And then, what was the... Okay, yeah.
Okay. Turchinov. Yeah. She handpicked Yatsenyuk, okay? If you didn't fucking know. She handpicked Yatsenyuk.
But I've heard the same phone call.
Yeah, so like, it was Yatsenyuk that she chose. It wasn't
like a hand-picking thing. But even
yes, it is because... No. Yes, it was because she said we should.
Bring up the phone call.
They said he should. They didn't say we would be happier. They said we should. Meaning they were going to act upon getting him.
Okay. All right, but what you're suggesting is the hand picking implies the coup.
It's not just the hand picking from the Victoria Nuland call. It's also the funding.
Even if I agree with you,
it's also the funding through the National Endowment of Democracy and other organs of American State Department foreign funding of that culminated into the fucking Maidan revolution through civil society organizations.
Okay, are we referring
funded
to
by the United States?
Are we referring to the anti-corruption center or whatever?
We're referring to a host of organizations.
Okay, just for example.
Like I forgot the name.
NABU,
it was like
NABU.
Next or something.
Nexta?
No, I don't remember the fucking name. Not Nexta.
Okay.
It was a fucking... I don't remember the name.
Okay, well, I mean, it's going to be, yeah. Okay, so I agree that there was funding in Ukraine. Would you agree that there was sort of a soft political war going on in Ukraine by dint of the trade deal that Yanukovych rejected?
Doesn't matter. He was illegally deposed.
Why did the Ukrainian parliament make exception when it was 328-0?
Because it was a coup. Because they staged a shooting by snipers of protesters, and that was the pretext to completely depose him and circumvent the parliamentary procedure. But even that had no legal precedent. They basically just accused him of a crime.
Those are facts, not in evidence. So, I mean, you got to provide evidentiary support for the idea that the West staged a massacre of people. Was it Berkut that shot a bunch of people?
Was it their
Berkut? It's the name of their special forces or whatever. Their special forces.
I don't know exactly who shot the protesters, but the details of the sniper massacre, supposedly perpetrated by Yanukovych, has been heavily contested.
I'm sorry, repeat that. I was looking at the fact check channel. No? Okay. I would contest that you need to provide evidence that the staging of a shooting of
We didn't say it was a staging of a shooting. We're talking about the perpetrators of the Maidan snipers that were decisive in the deposition of Yanukovych.
And didn't they say that Yanukovych gave the order?
No. The official investigation conducted denied there were any snipers in these Maidan-controlled locations. The majority of testimonies are by direct eyewitnesses. So these were testimonies exacted by the Ukrainian government itself.
Would you agree that if you were a head of state and you had a popular protest and then people shot protesters that were members of your police force, you would have to step down?
I'm not sure what the legal procedure in that for Ukraine is, but no, not necessarily, according to Ukraine's legal procedure.
Why did Yanukovych flee the country?
Because he was threatened with arrest over a crime he claimed he did not commit.
Well, if he was innocent, why didn't he defend himself?
Because he didn't think that it was going to get a fucking fair trial.
There's this grand conspiracy narrative that you're conjuring involving this alleged coup.
Oh, it's not a fucking grand conspiracy.
It's a grand conspiracy if the West both has to fund and perpetrate the coup, and it has to both fund and perpetrate the protests, and both.
When you don't have the parliamentary requirement to depose Yanukovych, guess what? There's going to have to be some other pretext.
Why were there 0 nays to depose Yanukovych?
Why were there what?
Why were there 0 nays? Why were there 0 no's?
0 what?
Why were there 0 no's? It's 328-0. Why are there?
It doesn't matter. The constitutional requirement needed 338, and if you look at Eastern Ukraine, a overwhelming majority, we're talking about in the 90% percentages, voted for Yanukovych. That was their president, who, in their view, was illegally deposed, and that's why they decided to declare their own sovereign republics.
Again, Igor Girkin FSB was working on the ground in Donetsk and Luganskaya Oblast. Like if you've got Radio Free Europe reporting that fucking he was conducting military tribunals and firing squads, shooting people for anything from petty theft to murder, and he was doing it invoking a Stalin, law that was passed under the USSR. I think that you have to at least look at that and be like, well, that's an inappropriate overstep for the Russians. And then
what? Okay, so the Russians went to Donetsk and started massacring people because of a Stalin law?
I mean, you can look it up.
What's the evidence for that?
Yeah, okay. Here, let me pull up an article for you. It's called The Executioners of Slavyansk.
Guys, post into fact-checking the sniper's testimony. Post it into fact-checking.
So this...
The executioners...
of Slavyansk.
The Russian-backed gunmen came and halt... Okay, these are saying... First of all, these are called Russian-backed gunmen. They're not actual Russian soldiers.
They're probably Wagner Group. Because we've got evidence that Wagner Group was on the ground in Donetsk and Lugansk. I was following this in 2014. I was working as a university researcher, and I was glued to the stories. I was on Russian Telegram too.
So this was all Wagner Group, and there was no popular will in Donetsk to separate and reject the coup that deposed the president that like 95% of fucking people in Donetsk voted for.
I agree with you that perhaps 95% of people in Donetsk and Lugansk voted for Yanukovych. This is the pro-Russian side of Ukraine, okay? I understand that. But Ukraine has the right to sovereignty over places that, even if they voted in
we can't complain to me about Ukraine's sovereignty when sovereignty is something that's recognized principally by the people within your own country. And when you circumvent your own constitution, then everything gets thrown up into the window. If you circumvent the constitution that actually solidifies your sovereignty and your legitimacy in the eyes of the people living in your country, they do have the right to fucking secede and set up their own sovereign state that's based on something legitimate.
I mean, your whole notion of legitimacy rests on this 328-0 vote. Like it was unanimous that Yanukovych be deposed. And
what were the margins for the 2020 election between Trump and Biden?
Dude, I don't even know. It was probably 300 Joe to like 220 or something. But
what if it was really close?
You're free to make your point.
What if it was really close? What if it was like 290 versus... I know it's not possible, but what if it was like 290 versus 300? Is it okay for Trump to just be president then? Because it's not even that much, who cares?
No, but this isn't voting like that. This isn't Hold
on.
Okay, right.
It does fucking matter.
I didn't say it didn't matter.
So the 10 shy does matter. The 10 that were shy of voting to impeach him do matter.
Is that because of a lack of bodies in parliament? Was that because of a lack of...
No, it was literally because not enough people voted to impeach him.
Or is it because people abstained? I'm asking you, like...
It doesn't matter what the reason for. They did not vote to impeach him.
It does matter. It does matter.
No, as per Ukraine's constitution, it does not fucking matter at all.
You're free to feel that way, okay? And you're free to feel that it was an illegal coup, and you're free to feel that, it was a violation of the Constitution. But still...
It literally was a violation of the Constitution.
None of that is proof of the Western involvement in the parliamentary vote. It's not proof of...
We're not talking about in the parliamentary vote. We are talking about in the civil unrest that precipitated the impeachment.
did the civil unrest start before the fucking vote in parliament to depose Yanukovych? That's not what I recall. Let's see
yes,
here.
it did. That was what the Maidan was.
Okay, the Maidan was not popular unrest as a result of, Yanukovych being deposed. Maidan was popular unrest as a result of a trading.
Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up.
As a result
Maidan
of a
was because shut the fuck up. Maidan
rejected by Yanukovych.
I hate this guy. I hate this guy so much. He's so fucking stupid. Maidan was about EU integration. Yanukovych wasn't doing it, so there was these protests, wild protests, and that's why they had the vote.
Right. So Yanukovych rejected a free trade deal with Europe, and instead opted for an exclusive
which he's
trade
free
deal
to
with
do
Russia.
as a president.
He's free to do, but the constituents are free to protest.
Okay, they're free to protest and then burn Kyiv to the ground.
I would say no to that.
Well, that's what they did.
Protest. Okay.
It was a revolution, right? It was an overthrow of a government.
Dude. The unrest is like very comparable to what goes on in the United States. Very comparable. Like, are we going to say that basically Black Lives Matter doesn't have a point because they burned some shit down?
If Black Lives Matter was the pretext for a complete overthrow of our constitution and a coup, then
the Maidan revolution is not the pretext.
Yes, it was, because Yanukovych was deposed without meeting the constitutional requirement.
Okay, but you believe, okay, say that I concede all that, all right? But you believe that Russia has the right to invade Ukraine as a result?
No, we're talking about the eastern Ukraine and why there were separatists.
I understand why they're separatists, but they were not separatists because of Maidan. They were separatists because Yanukovych stepped down, according to you, and that is what prompted organic separatist movement in those areas.
Because he was deposed in an illegal coup, so they decided.
You're assuming that you can't prove that in the event of 10 more votes that this outcome would not have been the same. You can't pretend that you know.
It doesn't matter.
It does matter.
The constitutional requirement to impeach him was not met.
And yet
he was deposed anyway.
It still doesn't give people.
Are you a pothead? Are you smoking pot?
No, dude. Listen. What gives Russia the right to invade Ukraine? That's the big picture. Like
Russia has the right to invade Ukraine first and foremost to defend its own security interests.
What are its security interests in Ukraine?
Preventing NATO from expanding into Ukraine, preventing NATO's weapons from reaching into Ukraine, and finally, preventing a anti-Russian hostile Ukrainian government from threatening Russia and Russians in eastern Ukraine.
I mean, that's the same thing Hitler said, but whatever. So let's see.
Wait. How is that the same thing Hitler said?
Because he said there's ethnic Germans in the Sudetenland, so Denmark I must invade.
There's ethnic Germans in Lithuania. Russia never talks about invading Lithuania.
That's because it's part of NATO.
No, it's not just because it's part of NATO. It's because
we can agree to disagree.
No, it's not. There's ethnic Russians in fucking Finland, okay? And Finland's not part of NATO.
I know that. But
Finland's not part of NATO.
Finland has
there's ethnic Russians in Kazakhstan. There's ethnic Russians in Kazakhstan. Russia is not.
That's true. That's true. But dude, like you're pretending like there's not a pattern of behavior with Georgia and Moldova and Ukraine.
There literally isn't.
There is. They were all once part of Ukraine, part of Russia's territory.
No, they weren't. No, they were not. They were part of the Soviet Union.
Okay, and you're fucking disputing that Russia and USSR are not somehow analogous for one another.
I am disputing that. I am disputing that.
So they were part of the USSR, and Putin has a fetish for the USSR.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't.
He does. He got up on the stage in Moscow and he said, "Ukraine's not a country. It's never been a country. It's a made-up country and it's a made-up people. Those are our people and they're the same as us. And we're gonna."
That doesn't prove he wants to restore the Soviet Union. But let me ask you a question.
He does want to restore the Soviet Union. He said that it was the greatest geopolitical
because it was, because so many people were just. He can say it was the greatest geopolitical catastrophe without implying he's trying to restore it. It was the greatest geopolitical. You can't even dispute that. Russians, people who were once one people, were artificially separated by these hard borders. It was a geopolitical fucking catastrophe. Of course it was.
I mean, for Russia.
For everyone.
There were people in Eastern Europe who felt that way. That's true. And I don't dispute that there's been a nostalgia in various places for the Soviet Union. But I am disputing that there's a complete willingness to surrender one's sovereignty amongst these Eastern European powers that, Russia's taken advantage of. I think you are deliberately ignoring the fact that Georgia, Moldova, and Ukraine.
This is what it's like to talk to an NPC. We talked about Transnistria. We talked about Georgia. We talked about that other place. I've explained to you how it's not like Hitler taking the Sudetenland or whatever the fuck you're trying to say.
Dude, it's just exactly like that. It's exactly like that. Have you ever been to Russia?
How is it exactly like that?
Because he said, there are Russians in Georgia that need our help, and there's Russian-speaking peoples in
the Ossetians are not Russians. South Ossetians aren't Russian.
Putin considers anybody who speaks Russian to be Russian. You don't understand the culture.
Well, if that's the case, then he's not an ethno-nationalist.
It's totally ethno-nationalist to assert that somebody's part of your ethnic group and then invade.
No, it's not, because he's not saying. Wait, you just admitted they're not part of the Russian ethnic group. They just speak Russian.
Dude, have you ever looked up ethnicity? It's part of your culture too. You're culturally Russian if you live in.
Are white and black people the same ethnicity?
No.
But they speak the same language.
Also have separate cultures. Yeah, and they're ethnically American.
Okay, so South Ossetians are Persians.
Here. Are all of them Persians?
Pretty much.
No, that's not true. I know that's not true. 100% no, that's not true.
Well, no one's 100% any ethnicity, but by and large, yes.
What are the demographic profiles of South Ossetia? Just so you
South Ossetia demographics. So Ossetians are 89%, Georgians are 7.4%, Russians are 1.1%, Armenians are 0.7%, and that's pretty much it.
South Ossetian demographic. Can you link it in the fact check or whatever?
Sure.
So, but they do speak Russian too, right? So,
I don't even know if they do, and I don't see why it would matter. They're not ethno-nationalists.
It does, because Putin has explicitly said in his speeches that anybody who speaks Russian is part of Russia. Is part of Russian.
Actually, Ossetian is the language they speak.
That's their native language, but they'll speak too. Just the same way that the Georgians speak Georgian, but they also speak Russian. I've been to Moscow, dude. Come on.
Do you want? What's your point? They're part of the former Soviet Union. Everyone spoke Russian as a second language.
Right. And
so that applies to that applies to all former Soviet territories.
Yeah. Lucky Putin.
Yeah, but Putin has not invaded.
He doesn't have the ability
anything close to all this former Soviet territories.
He doesn't have the ability to.
Really?
No.
He couldn't have invaded any of those Central Asian republics at any point?
He could have, per se, but there are a number of them that are on very friendly terms and supply him with military arms and military, aid and
why does Putin need aid from the fucking Central Asian republics? What aid does he need from them?
Are you familiar with the fact that, the USSR dissolved primarily because the bank was broken by the space race and the arms race? Like, Russia could not handle the fiscal drain on their economy, and they broke up.
No, I don't think that's why it broke up.
It is.
No, it's not.
And on top of that,
it's actually
all
not.
the money.
It's actually
Russia...
not.
All right. Well, you tell me why. You tell me.
A combination of Gorbachev's disastrous economic reforms, coupled with the explosion in ethnic and national tensions.
I think that when you talk about disastrous economic policy, you're talking about exactly what I'm talking about.
No, I'm not, because Gorbachev's economic reforms literally destroyed the Soviet economic system of planning and tried to replace it with like all these crazy market reforms that shocked the Soviet economy.
I have no doubt that it shocked the Soviet economy, but you're telling me that that the Soviet Union was economically untenable due to the actions of one particular leader. That's not mutually exclusive with what I said. And you're pretending
the leader
that it is.
Did lead to economic turmoil, yeah.
Okay, so I mean we're agreeing on that. So but so there's no point in, say, invading Kazakhstan, for example, because Kazakhstan is on extremely friendly terms with Putin. Extremely friendly terms with Russia.
What does that
mean? I mean, Russia feels friendly enough that they can ask for troops deployed in their conflicts.
They're part of the same organization, the CTSO. What is your point?
I'm just saying that you asked me why Putin hasn't invaded all these former republics, and I'm just giving you a reason. Because he's already friendly with many of them. He doesn't have the economic ability to do it. And he also doesn't have the military ability to do it.
Putin couldn't invade Armenia?
The Armenians are extremely friendly to Russia. You would never want to invade Armenia.
That's not true.
Didn't you see the fucking Armenians walking through the streets with Z flags and Russian flags the other day? You didn't see that?
It doesn't mean the Armenian government is friendly to Russia.
I think the Armenian people are very friendly to Russia. And I think if huh? What'd you say?
What's your point?
I mean, you just asked me, well, basically, why doesn't Putin invade Armenia? And I just told you what I thought. That was my point. Was there?
Putin has the ability to. The Armenian government's not friendly to Putin.
Again, I also said that he doesn't have the ability to invade every single one of these countries. You think he's got the economic and military ability to invade every single one of these countries?
It's like a logical black hole. So every country he's invaded is only because he's had the ability.
I mean, why would you? I mean, he doesn't really have the ability to win.
What makes Georgia so much weaker than Armenia?
I mean, you told me that there was, for one, it's fucking tiny.
Armenia's. Do you think Armenia is the fucking size of Australia or something?
I think that there would be a geopolitical problem if he invaded Armenia because of the Turks. I don't think the Turks would like that.
Why? The Turks and Armenians hate each other more than anyone. Why would the fucking Turks give a shit?
I mean, Do you think that Turkey wants Russia closer? Doesn't seem
Turkey
like
has to share the Black Sea with Russia already. What are you fucking talking about? Wait until you hear about Georgia, dude.
You just asked me. You just asked me why he doesn't invade Armenia. I said I don't think Turkey would like that. That's what I said.
Do you know where Georgia is on the map?
Oh yeah.
Are you
next
sure?
to Azerbaijan.
Are you sure you know where Georgia is on the map?
It's next to Azerbaijan.
What? Who else is it next to?
It's also next to. Let's see. It's right on the border of Russia. Like you can basically drive from Tbilisi to Krasnodar.
Who else?
Bro, I don't need to name every country it's next to.
What about to the east of Georgia?
To the east of Georgia is Azerbaijan.
Oh, sorry, to the west. What about to the west?
The Black Sea.
What about to the southwest border?
Turkey.
Exactly.
Yeah, and Armenia would logically come after Georgia, don't you think?
So Putin's planning to invade Armenia after Georgia.
That's not what I said. But if you didn't have a contiguous border with Armenia, why would you invade Armenia?
I don't know. What I mean, you're telling me you're the one who said
me about.
You're the one who said Putin's only invading the countries he can invade.
That's what I said.
He can't invade Uzbekistan. He can't invade Turkmenistan.
Not and remain politically tenable.
Why not?
You can't just send young men off to die in the digital information age.
You can't do. Then what? What's the standard here? Because you're saying that every single conflict in which Russian troops have been sent is because Putin could do it, and every single one where he hasn't is because he can't. Okay, sure. But you have to compare them then and explain why that is.
I mean, look, if you take part of Georgia, part of Moldova, and you've got 14,000 troops in Armenia, you've got troops in Georgia and Moldova, you've got a standing army of 900,000 people, and you've got 1-year conscription. You don't have the manpower to invade all these places. You don't have the manpower to have them remain stationed. You don't have the manpower to, prosecute the kinds of...
What Russian troops are stationed in Transnistria right now?
I don't know the number. You don't understand that me not knowing every single little bit of knowledge isn't...
You don't know what the fuck you're talking about, dude. You sound like a fucking idiot.
I don't know.
You named 3 examples, which is South Ossetia, Transnistria, and Abkhazia. Okay?
He's also got troops stationed in Russia. You understand that, right?
In Russia? His own country?
Like,
it's the next Hitler.
I'm trying to make it clear to you that Russia doesn't have the military ability to invade all these places at once. They don't have the political ability to invade all these places at once. He has to pick and choose which ones he can invade. He's picked pretty well so far. Okay?
So what is the rationality? What is the rationale behind these decisions?
I believe that he wants to create a new Iron Curtain, for one, and for two...
Wait, the Iron Curtain was the Warsaw Pact.
Yeah.
So he wants Poland, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Eastern Germany, and he wants all of that too as well, right?
Do you think that when I said new one, I meant the old one?
How would that be a fucking Iron Curtain? What are you talking about? Do you know what the Iron Curtain was?
Yeah, it was basically a bunch of buffers.
Do you have any actual analysis of what's going on besides just...
Yeah, I do.
Lazily applying the fucking Cold War to 2022 and saying he just wants to bring that back?
I mean, if you're mad at people for lazily bringing about Cold War policy, maybe you should email Putin.
Okay, but you don't understand the differences between the new Russia and the Soviet Union is your fucking problem.
Okay. Elaborate then.
So at most, at most, new Russia, which would be probably maybe a union or an economic or political union or some kind of new customs union or something like that, would just be Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine. Okay? Why? Because these are peoples that are historically part of the Russian people. That's just historically. Belarus literally means white Russian, Belarusia, right? Ukraine used to be called Malorusia, which means little Russian, right? And they used to call the Russians the Great Russians. So these are all types of Russian.
Ты хочешь со мной говорить по-русски?
What's that?
Ты хочешь со мной говорить по-русски?
No.
Это что ты хочешь? Okay, so don't fucking tell me what Russian is. All right?
Okay.
So, I know
you have
exactly
a shitty
why.
accent, dude. Your accent's fucking...
Yeah, horrible. When I was in Moscow, they fucking loved me, dude. So anyways.
They loved... I'm sure they...
Yeah, they loved me.
I think around the world, people pretend to like Americans, especially in urban centers. I don't think they actually like you, dude.
Yeah. So, anyways, Ukraine. Ukraine is filled with Ukrainians. And they're an ethnic group that doesn't want to be part of Russia. The western part did.
We're looping. We're looping.
The part,
we're just fucking looping.
Look,
we're looping. Eastern Ukrainians identify more with Russia.
If you insist on telling me how ignorant I am every 20 minutes...
No, okay, tell me about how you went to Moscow again. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so I went to Moscow in 2019 to see my girlfriend. It was fucking awesome. I ate so many fucking blini. I ate so many khinkali. So good. I stayed in Kitai Gorod. It was so fucking good. I recommend it sometime. Maybe you can get citizenship.
So you're a sexpat?
No. I met her in America.
Yeah, you sound like a creep, dude. Gonna be honest.
I don't know. I've seen the way you fucking do your show. You don't look all that much to look at.
I don't have to travel to other countries to find women.
She was the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen. So,
is she still your girlfriend?
No. COVID ended that.
Oh, it was COVID?
I mean, I couldn't travel for like 2 years.
She didn't find a new boyfriend?
Not that she told me.
How does it feel that another man is now with the person you claim is the most beautiful woman in the world? And he's probably Russian too. And he probably supports Putin.
Another man is not with her, and she doesn't.
How do you know?
Putin.
She's probably lying to you. She probably does support Putin, especially because she's now with a new man who's a fucking pro-Putin giga chad.
I mean, she doesn't support Putin. I talk to her like every week, 3 times a week. I don't know why you would think I don't know her.
Yeah, I think she's trying to scam you, dude. I don't think she actually likes you.
Yeah, that's an interesting take. Do you practice reading minds often? You're really good at it.
Can you speak up a little?
No.
I think she's with a pro-Putin Stalinist giga chat.
No, that'd be unlikely. If anything, she'd be with a Dagestani.
She would be with a Dagestani, the most pro-Putin region in all of Russia?
You really haven't been to Moscow, have you?
Moscow is not Dagestan. What are you talking about?
Right, but they've
Moscow's like the most liberal city in Russia, you dumb fuck.
They have so many like liberal Dagestani and Chechens in Russia.
Yeah, but the majority of Chechnya and Dagestan votes for Putin.
I agree with that. I'm just saying that not all of them do.
What is your point?
I don't know. You were telling me how some guy's railing my girlfriend. So why don't you just continue?
He probably is, dude.
Oh, so good.
I'm just telling you the truth. And he's probably a Putin supporter because all the real men in Russia support Putin. Just like most real men in America support Trump, it's the same in Russia. Sorry to break it to you, dude.
I don't know. The polling doesn't indicate that. We started with 70% or 60% support for the war. Then we went to 70%. And now the pollsters in Russia have a really hard time getting people to answer the questions.
You said first it started as 60, then it shot up by 10 points.
You didn't freaking listen to the last point.
And now they're having a hard time. Why are they now
having a hard time getting people to answer the questions? People say things like, well, are you going to put me in prison if I answer this truthfully?
No, I don't think. Who are these pollsters, first of all?
There's one state-run pollster and there's an independent pollster in Russia.
All right, and they're scared to answer the state-run pollster's question?
For sure.
Because I'm pretty sure there's like a consensus in Russia that pretty much like almost everyone who's in Russia is rallying behind the president.
That's not the case. My family from Russia fled Russia when they invaded Ukraine.
Why?
Because
who's your family from Russia?
I've got people in my family who were living within the third circle of the Moscow subway system.
Why are they Russians?
They are Russians.
Why did they leave?
They left because, his pension was worth something, but now it's not because of the ruble collapse.
So they're economic refugees.
Yeah, and they don't.
So what is your point?
I mean, look, I just told you that. You just told me that everybody supports Putin. I just told you my family fled Russia when he invaded Ukraine. How do you not know? That doesn't mean that's because they don't. Hold on.
Even if your family,
I know that my family doesn't support Putin. I know they don't because we've had these conversations.
Well, the people still in Russia mainly support Putin.
Yes, but many of them fled.
Yeah, but the ones who stayed behind mainly support him.
There's been multiple oligarchs who've said the war's terrible. There's been multiple.
Who gives a fuck what oligarchs say, dude? What are you trying to say?
Bro, if you don't think that a dictatorship that has to appease the military elite and the elite alike doesn't have to fucking...
he doesn't. Putin literally went on TV and he said if these fucking oligarchs don't get behind the patriotic effort and they want to have their caviar and be westernized, that they're a fifth column and they're traitors. That's what he called them.
I saw that.
Yeah.
And I think that...
It was pretty badass to me.
I think it's a sign of weakness.
No, I think it's a sign that he has a popular mandate and he doesn't have any mandate from oligarchs whatsoever.
He doesn't have a popular mandate. He's on thin ice. And
then why is he able to talk and slap these oligarchs around whenever he wants?
He's not really able to do that.
He just did it on TV by calling them out for being Western brainwashed elites.
He can, it's not like he's putting anybody to death. It's not like he's going to war with them.
That's not the type of country Russia is. He doesn't just put people to death, dude. It's not the Middle Ages. What are you fucking talking about?
He definitely kills people with poisoning when they're rather inconvenient.
Allegedly kills people with poison.
Allegedly? You don't even freaking believe that?
Yeah, I do. I literally not willing to just accept the accusations at face value. I'm not.
I thought when those poisonings happened, he'd made it very deliberate to make it as if, make it seem as if he was the one responsible so that people could look at him and be like, wow, that guy can do anything and get away with it.
I think that's just speculation. I don't think anyone really knows the truth.
Weren't the compounds used like very rare and expensive to make, and basically
that doesn't mean only Putin was the... What is your point? Okay, even if he did do it, what's your fucking point?
I mean, you just told me that he's slapping the oligarchs around, and I just want an example other than...
So you think that unless Putin poisons the oligarchs, he doesn't have a popular mandate?
I'm just saying that, when Jack Ma said something contrary to the script in China, he disappeared for months.
What's your point?
It sounds like Putin's kind of doing a shitty job.
Doing a shitty job at what?
Well, taking Ukraine for one, but also keeping his people in line. He's got so many people leaving, and if you remember the collapse of Russia in the 90s, you had an instance where...
people have been leaving Russia and all of the ex-Soviet states for decades. What's your point?
Right, and after the Cold War, the birth rate plunged by 60% and so on and so forth. People barely, they can barely freaking find, like, women can barely find men to mate with because of how few men there are. It's freaking
Why
ridiculous.
are you saying to mate with? It's just kind of weird. Like,
I don't know, dude. You're the one who talks about, my ex-girlfriend railing so-and-so.
oh, she's probably with a pro-Putin Chad. I'm sorry.
I mean, I appreciate your input.
I'm telling you the truth.
No, you're not.
If she wasn't, why isn't she with you anymore?
Well, she has to stay in Russia.
Yeah, but why isn't she like in a relationship, long distance relationship with you?
Some people don't want to do long distance.
Why not?
Because long distance
because she's with someone else. That's why. Put the fucking 2 and 2 together.
Dude, who's gonna engage in a long distance relationship?
You can at least be exclusive and just be like, I'm not gonna, get with a pro Putin Chad.
That is like
she can at least just be like, I'm not gonna get with this pro Putin Stalinist Chad with the fucking giant beard.
I wouldn't even want to be in a long distance relationship with her.
Or I get what you're doing. You're doing the open relationship thing where you're like, other men can rail her because I want to be with other women.
I think that is disgusting and perverse.
But that's what you're doing anyway.
No, it's not. I'm not in a relationship with her. Yeah, are you familiar with the term podruga? Are you familiar?
Yeah, but why not take it a step farther?
Because I just told you, there's so much distance.
You can at least keep it exclusive.
Why would you keep it exclusive?
So she's not keeping it exclusive. So she's not
Why would you be exclusive with somebody who lives half a world away?
Okay, I get it. So she's not keeping it exclusive with you.
Chris Morlock says he remembers me. That's a silly thing to say.
So she's not keeping it exclusive with you. It's that simple.
No. Nobody's asking for that. I don't even know why we're talking about this.
So she's with a pro-Putin Chad.
All right, cool.
And you called her the most beautiful woman in the world.
I mean, I thought that was a nice thing to say about her.
But she belongs to another man now.
I don't care. Doesn't bother me.
I just wanted to demonstrate that.
When somebody's not yours, you can't be angry about the fact that they're not yours.
Yeah, but you're still calling another man's girl the most beautiful man in the world.
Well, I know what you meant, but I mean, like, if you met somebody who was very beautiful, why wouldn't you praise them?
Because you called her the most beautiful woman in the world.
I'm convinced.
She's literally in bed with a pro-Putin Chad who has a giant portrait of Stalin above his bed and has fucking very hairy chest hair, and he's got fucking a gold necklace and gold rings on and shit, and gold teeth.
If you knew her, you would understand how unlikely that is.
No, I think it's very likely.
You don't know her.
Trust me, I know this.
Oh yeah, okay. Tell me what class she's from. What class of people do you think she's from? Where do you think she grew up? Answer those questions.
Russia.
Nope.
Her soul was in Russia.
Nope.
Well, she lives in Russia now.
She does.
And she can't settle for American beta males, so she's got to be with Russian men.
Yeah.
Which you're not.
No, I'm not. And thank God for that. I'd be dying in Ukraine right now.
Yeah, but she's... Well...
What are you expecting?
Her sex life is far from dying in another man's hairy arms.
Yeah, you're just showing how much you didn't know her.
Trust me. She's literally laying in bed with a guy who has a giant...
everything.
A guy who has a giant Stalin poster, a portrait in his room with a gold chain and gold teeth, and who's very pro-Putin patriotic. And they're cuddling right now watching a fucking bootlegged, pirated Netflix.
Unlikely.
Yeah. Telling you the truth.
So, anyways, Igor Girkin was operating in the Donbass in 2014.
Yeah.
He was FSB. He was killing people, and he was depositing their bodies where shells were being dropped by Ukrainian forces.
What's your evidence?
I gave you the evidence earlier. It was a link from Radio Free Europe. Go ahead and look it up.
Okay. Hold on. Let's look at your Radio Free Europe link. The executions in... Okay, so where do we get the part of bodies?
Bro, just read the whole thing. I'll wait.
Yeah, I'm not going to read the whole thing.
Read it with your chat. Read it with your chat.
It's way too long. I just want to get to the relevant part. You said artillery?
Shells.
Okay, here we go.
Do Control F shell or something.
Okay. The 30-year-old Pichko, a civilian, was taken to a gloomy two-story building surrounded by armed guards. He was interrogated, forced to write a confession, and summarily shot to death by a firing squad of Russian-backed separatists who seized control of the city. These executioners, so the guy you're saying who is responsible for all of this is not true. It's Russian separatists who did this.
FSB, Igor Girkin, Strelkov.
It says a firing squad of Russia-backed separatists.
You skipped the part where Igor Girkin is running the firing squad and running the military tribunal.
He was blown to bits by artillery shells. Okay. I don't see any evidence of laying bodies with the artillery shells. Igor... What is his name?
Igor Girkin.
Okay. The executioners. He's a self-professed former FSB officer and monarchist. So he's a self-professed FSB officer, but a former one. Okay?
Yeah, sure.
Girkin lives in that place. He lives in fucking Donetsk.
He does now.
No, he lives there.
He does now.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he was one of the same guys who was involved in Transnistria. You can look that up on his Wikipedia.
Girkin was part of the Russian groups that were within Russia, that were Russian patriots that went all across these hotly contested areas of where Russians were being oppressed or fighting for their freedom and fighting alongside them. He went, and they also went to the Bosnian War, and he went elsewhere and whatever. So what's your fucking point?
My point is if you got Russian FSB operating in Donetsk,
it's not FSB. It's former FSB. He doesn't fucking work for them anymore,
bro. You know what Putin said in a speech once? He said, "Once FSB, always FSB."
Okay, that's like when they say once a Marine in Nam is always a Marine. It's like some fucking shit people say. What's your point?
It's not just some shit people say. It's not just some shit people say. That is the nature of service as Putin believes it. He believes it's for life. He doesn't believe there's any way out of the FSB.
There literally is.
No. Once in the FSB, you're in for life. If you conduct yourself,
that's literally not true. You can leave the FSB.
Transnistria and Grozny and all these places, if you're conducting yourself in a way that is benefiting the Russian government...
This guy is an ideological warrior. He's not a fucking Russian agent. He's an ideological warrior.
That's like saying, like, Steve Bannon is an ideological warrior and not affiliated with Trump at all. And Steve Bannon, like, clearly goes to...
Steve Bannon is an ideological warrior. What the fuck are you talking about? His motivations are ideological.
Right, but do you think that Putin's ideological motivations differ from Igor Girkin's?
Probably, yeah. Girkin is...
Why would you
listen, Girkin is associated with a certain intellectual scene, okay? He's an ideologue. He's associated with a scene, okay?
Okay. Are you going to talk about who's part of that scene? Are you going to talk about the beliefs typical of such a scene? Maybe not.
What? Look, this is according to the New York Times. His ideological rigidity precedes any connections he has to Russia's security sources. stretching back at least to his days at the Moscow Institute for History and Archives. There, he obsessed over military history and joined a small but vocal group of students who advocated a return to monarchism.
I still don't see how this disavows his involvement with, like, basically operations that exclusively benefit the Russian Federation. And if you've got Wagner Group,
my operations benefit the Russian Federation as well.
If you've got Wagner Group, I don't know if they do. If you've got Wagner Group in Ukraine, then, you know, it seems like, for all intensive purposes, there's been a shield of plausible deniability veiled over both Girkin and Wagner Group by dint of the fact that Wagner Group is a PMC, and PMCs have some plausible deniability. But we know that Wagner Group has been working in Syria, has been working in Ukraine.
What are you trying to... Bro, spit it out. What are you trying to say right now?
Bro, you can't just send PMCs and spies into foreign countries and talk about it like it was an assertion of the sovereignty of the downtrodden. That's not what it was. And
yes, it was. Whatever Russia was sending was assistance to those people.
And they sent a BUK, and the BUK fired from Russian territory in September of 2014. It shot down MH17 and killed 300 people. So
your ex-girlfriend is getting a BUK every night that you're not there.
And then Igor Girkin posted on Vkontakte that they shot down that plane. He posted
even if I accept everything you're saying, it's not relevant or meaningful at all.
It is relevant.
No, it's not.
You have all these holier than thou claims about sovereignty. Oh, you know, these people in this oblast need to have sovereignty, and these people in that.
Sovereignty is very important, but when it comes to the collapse of the USSR, that was an extremely messy process, which to this day has not been resolved.
It just feels like
that's a situation where, like the Middle East and the Balkans, you have an issue of the development of sovereignty, which is still an ongoing development.
Okay, so you're saying that the process, like, sits the collapse of the Soviet
like sovereignty,
Union.
Sovereignty is based on customs, traditions, mores, and history, and things like that. Like, it's not just based in a formal institution. Sovereignty is also based in the custom and tradition and legitimacy of a state. All of those things are still contested after the collapse of the Soviet Union.
So you're basically saying that the states that sort of split from the USSR when it dissolved
are still struggling to figure out what their sovereignty actually is and what it entails.
I feel like you believe that the collapse of the USSR was terribly unjust, and that whatever rationale need be employed should be employed in order to justify invading sovereign territory. And you're basically saying that this sovereignty of these places was essentially up for grabs. It's not set in stone, and it feels like
that is not what I said. For example, if Russia were to go in and occupy Moldova at the expense of the Moldovan people's will, that would be an act of oppression and whatever the fuck you're talking about, right? That's not what we're dealing with here. Okay, the situation is just way more complicated than that.
All right, let's deal with specifics then. All right, so let's say that I conceded that Donetsk and Lugansk needed to be invaded by Putin or whatever. They
were not invaded by Putin.
Okay, right. Okay, so let's say that that's the case and all that. And you just told me that if Russia invaded Moldova at the expense of the Moldovans, that would be wrong.
And I'm saying if Russia invaded Moldova, like the whole of Moldova, and forced Russian sovereignty over the will of the Moldovan people, so that the Moldovan people have to live under Russia and Russian rule, yeah, that would be wrong. That would neglect the reality of Moldovan sovereignty.
All right.
And self-determination.
So what happened with Ukraine such that he can override the sovereignty of the native Ukrainians? Like, I don't understand how it's different from the Moldova example that you just gave.
Russia is not occupying Ukraine. It is demilitarizing Ukraine and eliminating a security threat coming from Ukraine. Ukraine does not have the sovereign right to pose a security threat to Russia if you want to guarantee a lasting peace on the European continent. If you don't care about peace on the European continent and you want it to be World War I all over again, then there's no basis for any fucking sovereignty in the first place.
You chastised me for employing Cold War politics earlier, and now you're...
That's not Cold War politics. That is literally all real politics forever before the Bill Clinton era of fucking coping about everyone in the world, globalism. That's all fucking made up bullshit. We still live in the same world that, you know, of World War I and World War II, and we in the Cold War even, we live in that world, okay? We live in a world where everything is based on a very delicate balance of competing sovereigns and disputed territories and wars. We live in that fucking world still. We don't live in a happy globalist world where everyone's holding fucking hands and Bill Clinton singing Kumbaya and everyone's raising charity for starving people in Africa. And Bono and fucking Madonna are on stage and doing... That's not the world we live in, okay? We still live in that old world.
It sounds like you're kind of making a justification for might makes right.
No, I'm not. I'm giving you a description of the world we live in. We live in a world where if you make moves that threaten another country's security, that country is going to do something about it. But Russia tried to settle this peacefully for 8 years.
Did they?
Yes, they did. They even got Ukraine to sign the Minsk agreements, according to which there would be a ceasefire in the eastern Ukraine, which Ukraine decided to violate and which Ukraine decided to throw out of the fucking window and say, oh, we don't agree with the Minsk agreements anymore because we were forced to sign them.
Well, I mean, they were technically under duress. But
yeah, but those are agreements. Okay, then Ukraine should have declared war then and not signed the agreements because it signed those agreements.
If we're talking about agreements, well, Russia and the United States both violated the Budapest referendum. Okay?
You mean the Budapest Memorandum?
Whatever, dude. And the Budapest Memorandum dictated that Ukraine give up all its nuclear weapons for, in order to have security as a neutral power. Okay? So, and then Russia violated that guarantee in 2014, and it is violated again in 2022.
The United States violated it prior to that, both when it sanctioned Belarus, which was a violation of the Budapest Memorandum, as well as when it helped the Maidan coup. Even if you deny the U.S.'s involvement in the Maidan coup, the sanctions against Belarus did violate the Budapest Memorandum.
Why did the sanctions of...
because part of the Budapest Memorandum was that you could not use the powers of economic coercion to influence any of these states that were listed in the Budapest Memorandum, and Belarus was one of them.
Why was Belarus sanctioned? And when
it doesn't fucking matter. It was a violation of the Budapest Memorandum. No, it doesn't.
Matter. Yeah,
because of some internal political bullshit.
Let's see. Look, there are Belarus sanctions right now that are in place. Tell me the ones
the Budapest Memorandum is thrown out the window.
Tell me the ones that you're referring to that predate the 2014 invasion of Donetsk and Lugansk.
Sure. They were in 2013.
All right. Thank you. March. Okay.
Actually, yeah. I think also 2007 there was some.
No,
that was Iran.
I'm reading that 2012 and 2013 Belarus was subject to UK sanctions and EU sanctions. was it subject to U.S. sanctions as well?
Yes.
Or was it just EU sanctions? Because I can't find a source that it was subject to U.S. sanctions in 2013. I can only find EU and UK.
Okay, in 2013, American sanctions were implemented against Belarus.
Okay.
Because of human rights violations and other illicit activities of the government of Belarus. So the US responded that, oh, we didn't do sanctions against the people of Belarus, just the government.
Okay, so
doesn't fucking matter. It still violates the Budapest Memorandum.
Those are weasel words. I agree. Is Georgia listed on the Budapest Memorandum?
I doubt it.
Why do you doubt it?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not.
What about Moldova?
No, it's not.
All right, then I guess it doesn't matter that we signed that agreement, especially given that, Russia has invaded Ukraine now and nobody's playing by the rules, I guess. So I will concede that the US breached those sanctions when they sanctioned Belarus. Or they breached the agreement when they sanctioned Belarus. I will concede that. But again, I don't think that.
All right, thanks for the concession. Bye.